You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Summer is here. At Orderly Meds, we know this time is a reminder that life is full of new beginnings. Whether you're celebrating the nice weather, starting a new chapter, planning a vacation, or simply looking ahead to what's next, this season can be the perfect time to invest in yourself and your health. If you've struggled with weight loss and are curious about GLP-1 medications, Orderly Meds can help you learn about your options. Through a simple virtual process, you can connect with licensed medical professionals who can determine whether treatment may be appropriate for you. Getting started is fast, convenient, and happens online from the comfort of home. This summer, consider a new approach to feeling your best. Visit orderlymeds.com/podcast to learn more. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. orderlymeds.com/podcast. Because every new season is an opportunity to take the next step forward. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.
Welcome to the Irish NFL Show on the Believe Network, brought to you in association with QuinBet. Football may or may not still be coming home after England exercised their demons at the Azteca Stadium in Mexico. The NFL, though, is definitely coming home in September, and we are continuing our summer tour around the divisions in the meantime. This time out, it's the AFC North, topped by the Pittsburgh Steelers in dramatic fashion because of a missed field goal by the Ravens last year. Brian O'Leary, Kieran O'Donovan and Kieran Boyle with me, Conor Brophy, as we break it down, starting with the team that finished on the bottom of the AFC North, the Cleveland Browns. Brian, you quite fancy the Browns this year, and there are reasons, quarterback aside, why you can look at this roster, and if a couple of things click into place, this could be quite an exciting Browns team to watch.
Yeah, I think it's very much built on probably two successful drafts. Kind of now, when I say that, we've yet to see a ball snap, we've yet to see a player play. But you look at what they did in the draft this year and how they orchestrated it. I think Andrew Berry, the GM, over the last 2 years, he's found ways to navigate situations. And leaving last year when they did the trade on the draft night with the Jags and to get the additional pick to take Mason Graham, like in years gone past, Browns would have, I wouldn't say they would have gone the wrong route with a pick, but it just looks like now they're finally getting to the stage where they're making right decisions for the future as opposed to immediately. And I think probably they're still a born point into Deshaun Watson trade to a certain extent to still have that big contract to kind of unravel. But they are putting a younger team together. I thought the draft was really good in terms of wide receivers. They're crying out for, attack-minded players offensively to help whatever quarterback it's going to be, to take a wide receiver. They double down, they go after another wide receiver in the later rounds. And then the Myles Garrett trade comes on June the 1st. And was a couple of years ago, we felt it was the right time to do it because it was a huge opportunity for a rebuild. They probably acknowledged that Myles Garrett's been a fantastic player for them. He broke the record last year in terms of the sack record. But ultimately, they're short of being in the playoffs by a few players. They're not going to give him that opportunity, which he deserves, as to go and try achieve success and win a Super Bowl. He's going to get that with the Rams in LA. And I think it just came at the right time. And I like the way Andrew Berry got out in front of it then in the press conference the day after the deal. He didn't kind of, I suppose, relinquish the situation in terms of not going in front of the media and explain the rationale. And I thought it was polished and I thought it was well earned. And I think he's made his decision. This team can go places if we do the right moves now. I think they're a couple of years probably short of it, but I think things are moving in a good direction. For years, they've been sitting at the bottom of the division. It's a very competitive division, I know, but I think the Browns might be a team that can actually shock a few people this year based on what they've done this offseason.
Kieran O'Donovan, you're nodding away there, and it was interesting in the off-season. One of the interviews we did was with Bruce Arians, who was singing in praise of coaches with a few miles on the clock, saying there've been a lot of comments, I thought very unfair comments about Todd Monken, and Todd Monken's too old to connect with younger players, which I think is the greatest load of Ramesh. And Bruce Arians was saying Monken is the kind of guy that players love to play for. I remember myself and Brian, and we've talked about this several times on the show, going over to see when he was in his first season as offensive coordinator with the Ravens, and you could see how energized that Ravens offense was after finishing on a bit of a low point the previous season. He changed things around. He got a whole second wind out of Lamar on that offense. And, I think there's reasons to be cheerful about what he can do in Cleveland. But all of that depends, as Brian was alluding to there, on what caliber of quarterback play they end up with.
Yeah, and it's so great that that you had Bruce Arians on. Such a great interview it was, and it's great to get that insight from the insiders who know these guys, who know what players think of them, because we only we can make all of our comments from from the ivory tower, or whatever you want to call it, or the hurlers on the ditch standpoint, but there's a lot of value.
See, Kieran, you do it to yourself. Like, none of us were going to mention hurlers now, and you've obviously got it on the brain after poor Cork went out over the weekend.
Sorry, it was on the brain, unfortunately, but and I can't get it out, unfortunately. But no, you're absolutely right. And not only is can we say that Todd Monken may be a coach that the players would love to play for, but he's a coach coming from within the division as well. He's a guy who knows a thing or two about the AFC North. And it's funny with this kind of revolving door of coaches. We'll talk about the Ravens later, seeing a need to shore up their defense and what they've done at head coach. The Browns needed a jolt on offense. I mean, they've been stuttering to start on offense for the last few years, and there's been very little wrong with the defense actually, who've done their bit and who've carried this team to the playoffs in recent years as well. We kind of forget that the Browns are only a couple of seasons away from Coach of the Year and getting to the playoffs. So they're not a million miles away. And I tend to agree with Brian. I think, like, we're going to talk about the Steelers in a while, and I'd put the question: would you rather be a Steelers fan at the moment, or a Browns fan, in terms of what the team is capable of achieving over the next 5 years? Because what the Browns have done in the last couple of years is they've hit on a few draft picks. You look at the young tight end they brought in. You look at Schwechlinger at linebacker. I hope I didn't butcher that name too much. And what they've been able to achieve in the first couple of years, they haven't just given away Myles Garrett. They brought in a superstar in Jared Verse, I believe, as well, who's he's well able to do his bit on defense. You'd like to think that if you're a Browns fan, that they can hit on these two receiver picks in Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion. So there's a huge reason to be hopeful if you're a Browns fan. And I think the question largely comes down to, number one, who's going to start at quarterback? You've got that quarterback, would you call it a quarterback controversy, or certainly a quarterback competition going on at the moment, in the fact that I don't think anyone's been named a starter as of yet. Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders have been splitting reps. A lot of people want to see what Shedeur has, and I kind of feel like, yes, while there is a temptation to see if Deshaun Watson, let's just talk about the on-field stuff. If Deshaun Watson can be what Deshaun Watson was at one time for the Texans, there may be that temptation to see if you can get the best out of him. But I think a lot of fans would want to see truly what they can get out of Shedeur Sanders, because if they feel like he's a bust, if they give him a full season as a starter and he's a bust, they've also lined up 2 first-round picks next year, and they could be in that quarterback sweepstakes. They have 11 draft picks next year. I mean, they have multiple picks in many rounds. They have a huge amount of draft capital to play around with if they want to. So, yeah, while Brian says they may surprise teams this season, I'm not quite sure they're going to be at the top of the table in this division come the end of the season, but there's certainly hope for what they can do in the next 2-3 years.
I mean, you never know looking at it from the outside, and I think, as you've summarized it brilliantly there, it's such an interesting angle for them to be so, at least superficially, prepared to let Deshaun Watson win back the job. I wonder if that's more about iron sharpening iron and trying to make sure they can bring out the best in Shedeur than it is about Watson. It just feels to me like playing Deshaun Watson would be the ultimate example of sporting sunk cost fallacy. Oh, we spent so much on this guy, we have to try and wring every last drop out of him. Like, even when he was fit, it never looked like he was a fit in that team, and it never looked like he had the players behind him. It just looked over before it even started. I don't know if there's any resuscitating that, but let's see as we go through the
Conor,
sorry, Brian, yeah.
Sorry, just a quick one on that. So Deshaun Watson, you would have seen, and we spoke about this previously, where you see certain quarterbacks go down. Josh Allen goes down. The offensive line rushes around to make sure he gets up on his feet again. There was times when Deshaun Watson was playing for the Browns. I know we're moving on and we're transitioning into a different environment in terms of an offensive line, but there was times where but they left him on the floor. They weren't even willing to go up and pick him up. Could have said a lot from where they were.
Remember the fans infamously applauding when he was carted off the field at one stage, and even Myles Garrett took to the task afterwards. I'm like, I'm sorry, but does nobody read the newspapers, Myles? I mean, come on. Fans knew. Yeah. They knew. They understood the assignment. Anyway, as you say, let's try and keep it to on-field matters. Kieran Boyle, Brian just mentioned the O-line there, giving me a nice segue into you, because one of the greatest factors of variance in the NFL from season to season, and the most critical determinant of success, apart from the quarterback himself, is the offensive line he has in front of him and the caliber of play that you get out of them. The Browns are investing there as well, like quietly. You know, Myles Garrett's departure and Jared Verse heading the other way gets all the headlines, but they're bringing in Titus Howard, Zion Johnson, Elton Jenkins. We'll see how much tread he still has on the tires. A top-class offensive lineman out of Green Bay, although unfortunately with his fair share of injury issues. What they're doing is making sure that whoever is under center is protected as best they can be, and seeing what Monken can do and whether he can get a quarterback to cook. And you kind of feel, looking at the Browns, they can go 5-12. And as long as they look frisky and as long as a lot of the pieces are in play, they're not going to be unhappy with this season, and they will get a swing at selecting their quarterback of the future in that QB-rich draft, which we assume it to be in 2027.
Well, yeah, you kind of took the words out of my mouth there. 5-12 last year. That's kind of where I have them this year. You talked about the O-line. Yeah, I mean, on paper, they look pretty good, but it's a whole bunch of new faces. And, as we see in the NFL, I mean, the O-lines that stay together for a number of years are the ones that are successful. Fano, I mean, as a tackle, a great player, but he's got to mesh with the rest of the dudes. I want to go back a little bit to the quarterback issue. I think the Browns are screwed royally this year with what's gone on with the quarterback situation. It's obvious that they don't want Watson around. I mean, this is, I can go on a rant about different people, but what Barry and Jimmy Haslam did, I still feel they've got off the hook massively on this. The big winner obviously was Nick Caserio and what he got back from this, but I mean, you've got three.
I'll tell you who the big winner was in all this is the Atlanta Falcons. Who did show their ass for Deshaun Watson and got outbid. Didn't they dodge a bullet there? Like, that's a sliding door scenario in and of itself.
And a huge amount of teams did the same thing because they were all sniffing around him. But I mean, like I said, Caserio was the big winner. But when you got three quarterbacks and you got three iffy quarterbacks, you got nothing. I mean, I love the Browns are the big conundrum. I love what they've done with the last couple of drafts. I mean, they've got quality players across the field, but in this league, you need someone slinging the ball. You need someone that commands the respect of the rest of the field. Deshaun Watson ain't it. I don't think Shedeur Sanders will ever be it with this team. And who else you got? Dylan Gabriel. So they got huge issues at quarterback. The run game is not that solid. If Judkins goes down, who else are you going to bring in there? I think that those are the key issues that I see with the Browns. Notwithstanding the improvements they've made on defense, obviously, bringing in Jared Verse. But, you look around the team, there's a lot of stuff to be excited about with this team. Linebackers, tight ends with Fannin Jr., I've got questions about the running game. Obviously, the wide receiver room is much, much improved. But it all, when we have all these conversations, everything boils down to who's slinging the ball behind center. And, I've been thinking about this a little bit, and it almost makes more sense. And we discussed earlier that, the Browns are going to be fishing around in the draft next year. There's going to be upwards of almost 9 to 10 quarterbacks going in round one next year. So you're going to have your pick of quarterbacks wherever you finish. If you finish with 8 wins, you're probably going to have a good swing at a quarterback next year. So the Browns are in a good spot there because I think everyone on the outside, obviously not inside the Browns, but everybody on the outside can see that that's a poor and it's a confused, it's a convoluted.
The mischievous part to me, and the part that's seen the Haslams do what they do in the past, is saying Brandon Sorsby.
Yeah, well, I mean,
he would have gamble on the gambler.
Yeah, I mean, he would have been they would have probably brought him in just to make things even more complicated with that quarterback room. But it's messy back there. You got 3 guys who don't command the respect of any kind of veterans on that field or any kind of guys that are. I mean, if you're an O-lineman, you look back and you see Deshaun Watson. I mean, you're wondering to yourself, am I blocking for this guy? What am I doing here? So, huge issues in the quarterback room. Again, I think 5-12 last year. Monken coming in. I mean, it's a nice pickup. He'll do well. He'll command the respect. But again, the story for the Browns is continue doing the work that you've done in the draft. Try and shed these contracts. Maybe bring a free agent quarterback in. Maybe week 2 or 3. See who's around. Who knows? Maybe Kirk Cousins. Maybe after week 2, Mendoza takes off in Vegas, and Kirk Cousins finds himself on the bench, maybe he's a move to make, or even what
they had him, Kieran. They had him. It was Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
It was Joe Flacco, and they binned him off. Well, they binned him off. Traded him to the Bengals.
But I mean, a veteran. I mean, look what Flacco did. I mean, he got him to the playoffs. Obviously, it didn't end well, but he got him there on a team definitely not as talented as this team in certain areas. So I'm all for bringing in a free agent just to solidify what's going on behind center. But it's going to be another kind of, let's look around. Let's see what we got. Let's see where we can cut some fat. Let's try and whittle the cap space down a little bit. See what we can do, and see if we can get a nice pick in the 27 draft for a quarterback, because I think it's going to be another 5-12, 6-11 kind of year for Cleveland.
Summer is here, which means we all want to look and feel our best. A GLP-1 may be right for you. Visit orderlymeds.com to learn more about which GLP-1 you could be eligible for. Getting started is fast, easy, and happens virtually through telemedicine from licensed professionals. Check it out for yourself. Go to orderlymeds.com/podcast. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. Taking care of yourself feels great. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.
You can't predict the future, but you can prepare for it. Arizona State University is building degrees for what's ahead, taught by world-class faculty who are shaping our future. Explore over 350 programs offered online at asuonline.asu.edu.